welcome to the ComSpark podcast, where you will get to meet today's technology thought leaders. To learn more, visit comspark.tech.
We're here today with Michael Fillios, founder and CEO of IT Ally. IT Ally provides IT advisory services to small and mid-sized businesses and helps them to leverage technology to grow, secure, and differentiate, and is a Cincinnati-based company with a possible goal of national expansion further on down the road. My name is Hannah Tucker, and I am the editorial coordinator for Lead Tribune Media Group, and I will be your guest moderator today. So let's get started. Michael, thank you for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
We're glad to get your thoughts on some of this. So today we're going to focus on some questions about security. And the first question we have for you is the meltdown and Spectre vulnerabilities that we've seen in the news, various hackings at high levels. Should we be worried about those sorts of things?
Absolutely. These are just two of the more recent examples of attacks that we've seen over the years that particularly are reinforcing the vulnerabilities that most companies have in their environments. If exploited, these vulnerabilities can be serious and damaging to organizations, and certainly ones that we should really take seriously. Particularly with the Spectre and meltdowns, these had produced fundamental flaws underneath the hardware aspects of the software that we use every day. So even though we might have thought the code was protected in these cases, that may have turned out to be false.
How might these sorts of vulnerabilities affect our businesses?
Well, the stakes are pretty high, and particularly if you are a small, medium business where IT Ally focuses on, the impacts of these sort of attacks could be fatal. Certainly the statistics are also quite alarming in that a small, medium business that has a cyber breach or cyber attack, 60% of them go out of business in 6 months. So so you need to be prepared as a small, medium business and also as a large organization, but certainly organizations need to take these attacks very seriously. So as it relates to the small, medium businesses, certainly we need to be very mindful of the fact that typically small, medium businesses believe that they don't have things of value that hackers would like to get. So it's very important that because of their size, that they believe they're not valuable targets, but this is simply not true. Certainly for large corporations as well, it can be extremely costly to them, not to mention some of the reputational damage that could occur, and the long-term impact can be significant. Some of the more recent examples also that we've seen with companies have resulted in senior IT leaders getting terminated. Not only the folks running IT, but senior leaders such as the CEO. So it certainly has become a much more prevalent topic for boards, making this a standing agenda item and making sure that all of the executives responsible within the organization take this very seriously.
Absolutely. Shifting away from the corporate side of things a little bit, what about at home? Should we be concerned about our personal devices as well?
Again, I think this is extremely important, particularly given the trend and growth and proliferation of the use of personal devices more and more every day. So as smartphones and tablets become constant companions, hackers are seeking every avenue available to break into them. Many people expect that an iPhone or an Android device are secure by default, when in reality it's really up to the user to ensure that they are making the right security configurations to further secure their devices. But it's scary to think that with very little inexpensive equipment, a hacker can gain access to a nearby mobile device in less than 30 seconds and either mirror that device or see everything on it, install malware that will enable them to siphon data from that at their leisure. So mobile security threats will continue to advance, and clearly also from a corporate perspective, these are become channels for organizations to push a lot of their data to. So more the reason organizations really need to think about, fully understand the implications of a faulty mobile security practice and making sure that they've got best practices implemented. So whether it's antivirus or anti-spam or endpoint firewalls and other kinds of tactics, certainly this needs to be part and parcel of the overall security strategy for an organization, big or small.
So even with people bringing their own personal devices to their company, you think that all companies should harden not only the corporate devices, but personal devices as well?
Absolutely. Again, given the mobile devices also are becoming inherently moving targets, outside of the organization's perimeter, and thus outside of its firewalls. Threat management, spam, content filtering, and other tools to keep these evildoers at bay is vital. To apply a battery of best practices to the use of mobile devices to keep exposure to risk and loss at a minimum. Any security expert will tell you, though, that it's a fine line between enough security and keeping things safe and protected versus a smothering blanket that doesn't let people be able to do the things they need to do. So certainly we recommend that you take a hard look at this and apply these best practices, particularly on mobile devices, because they are mobile, can be easily taken and compromised.
So the last question we have for you is, speaking of all these security vulnerabilities and various issues that we may have both within our companies and at home, what would you recommend to a company that doesn't have a security or a governance plan, maybe a small business like you mentioned before? Where would they even start?
Well, it's really important particularly as a small medium business, to think that doing nothing is an option. And really, we believe at IT Ally that the best start is to conduct a formal security assessment, really understanding from a fact-based perspective where your risks are. That begins to create a prioritized view of where you should be focusing your precious resources in terms of assessing the risk and ensuring that you've got the appropriate plans in place to mitigate that. From this, a company can then develop a long-term view of what it needs to do to establish these appropriate practices, and remembering that there's no silver bullet to solving this challenge. And quite frankly, it is a marathon that never ends. The fighting cyber terrorism is a real threat. It's a team sport, and one that really gets at the underlying culture of an organization in terms of its embracing of how they want to manage the tone at the top of an organization. But it really is the responsibility of all, from the employees on the front line to the back office to the senior executives. It's a constant and consistent approach that's needed, and one that really requires the engagement of all to be successful.
Well, thank you so much for your time and coming in. We really appreciate having your thoughts. Again, this is Hannah Tucker with Lead Tribune Media Group and Michael Fillios from IT Ally. To learn more about us, visit comspark.tech. And goodbye until next time.